Welcome to San Antonio's Influence Magazine show, the premier talk show where we introduce you to influential individuals doing significant work in the city of San Antonio and surrounding areas. Celebrate the spirit of business, leadership, and innovation. If this is your first time joining us and you'd like more information, you could find us at influencesa.com. That's influencesa.com. Like us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and for this particular episode of the show, all future and past episodes of the show, pull up your YouTube search bar, toss in San Antonio's Influence Magazine show. When you get there, please subscribe, give us a like or a thumbs up, and hit that bell so that you don't miss any future episodes of the show. Welcome to today's show, folks. I'm your host, Cedric Fisher. Today we're sitting down with a leader whose career is a masterclass in commitment, consistency, and growth. Bill Day of Frostbank has spent decades shaping Frostbank's voice and reputation as Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications. In a world where people jump from companies every few years, Bill's 10-plus year career at Frost stands out, not just for its longevity, but for the impact he's made all along the way. In this segment, we're diving into the moments, motivations, and milestones that built Bill's remarkable career at Frost. When we come back, we'll get into it. Stay tuned.
As I developed an appreciation for my personal originality and uniqueness, I began to love the fact that I was different. As I uncovered my individual preferences and my interests, I became comfortable with the real me.
Presented by Cedric D. Fisher and Company Publishers. In a world where identity is often challenged and cultures collide, one woman's journey shows us the power of resilience, self-discovery, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Born in Hong Kong and raised in America, Helen Yi faced the struggles of finding her place in a new land. Confronted by racism, cultural differences, and personal adversity, Helen's story is one of courage and determination. Inspired by her grandfather's legacy of integrity and entrepreneurship, Helen embarked on a journey of self-discovery. She learned to defend herself against all odds, even fighting off an armed carjacker and escaping with her life. Through the discipline of martial arts, music, and entrepreneurship, Helen found a way to reconnect with her heritage and discover her inner strength. She became a successful business owner and a professional musician, proving that it's never too late to pursue your dreams. I Belong Here is a powerful memoir that takes readers on a journey from the streets of Hong Kong to the heartland of America. It's a story of family, friendship, and the unbreakable bonds that tie us all together. Helen's journey will inspire you to embrace your own uniqueness, face your challenges head-on, and find your place in the world. It's a testament to the human spirit and the power of believing in yourself. I Belong Here, Living the Life I Was Born For in America by Helen H. Yi. Available now wherever books are sold. Discover the extraordinary story of a woman who found her voice and her place in the world.
Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm proud to be here.
So let's just start with your background. Let our viewers know where you're from, a little bit about your childhood and your education.
Okay. Well, the more I talk, the more you'll realize I'm not a native Texan. You can probably hear from my accent that I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit.
And spent my childhood there in the Detroit area.
Okay.
And very normal, very bland childhood. But when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go out and see the world. And so that's how I ended up in Texas. Was I had been searching around for a place to go to college, and in Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth, at the time it was Texas Wesleyan College, offered scholarships to kids from out of state to come there. So I got an academic scholarship and landed in Fort Worth in 1985. and have been in Texas on and off ever since. And so I studied political science at Texas Wesleyan with the idea that I would be a lawyer. I was in the pre-law program. And I like to tease the lawyers that I know now that all it took me was a couple of meetings around the other kids who wanted to be lawyers to realize I didn't want to be a lawyer after all. One of those guys, though, who did become a lawyer and is a prominent lawyer in Fort Worth still, lived across the hall from me in the dormitory. And he was also the editor of the college newspaper. And I got to know him pretty well. His mom would send him care packages with cookies and stuff in it, so I hung out in his room an awful lot, and he recruited me to start working at the school newspaper as a reporter. They wanted reporters. He asked me if I could write, and I was like, I'd like to take pictures. I could be a photographer. They had plenty of photographers. They needed reporters. So my first ever bylined article in a newspaper was in the college newspaper in Fort Worth. I wrote a story about a kid who basically was carjacked. They took his car, he got it back, and it was a story on the front page of the college newspaper with my name on it. And from that moment, I was hooked. It was like electric. Like I can do this. It was fun. I found it easy. And not everybody could do it, and I was super interested in that. So I didn't change my major. I stayed in political science, but I had conversations with the advisor to the newspaper about, is this something that's feasible to study and to do as a career? And he said, sure. And so I minored in journalism and graduated. I have a whole story about how I, still studied political science and focused on foreign affairs, and that was kind of my backup plan as I would go into the Foreign Service. Concentrated on what they call comparative political systems, learned about the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union, and I graduated in 1989, and if you remember, in 1989, in 1990, 1991, a series of things happened. The Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union collapsed, all of the Eastern European countries became democracies, and everything that I had learned in comparative political systems was now history. It was useless. Luckily, I had already focused on journalism and started my career working in newspapers in the Dallas.
So a poli-sci major, journalism minor.
And it became useful in journalism to know how political systems worked, how our government systems worked, because you cover city council meetings and you cover school board meetings and you may write about state government, federal government, how they interact. It was useful, but the main thing was the experience I had of writing for the school paper, taking jobs at small community newspapers in the suburbs around the Dallas area, and learning the craft of journalism. And I was in print journalism for a long time.
Yeah. Pistons fan, Tigers?
Lions? It's hard to be a Lions fan.
Okay.
It's getting easier.
They've been winning last few years.
They went as deep into the playoffs as they could year before last. Didn't quite make it to the finals. I grew up a hockey fan, so I was a Detroit Red Wings fan, first and foremost. And then lived in the Dallas area when the Dallas Stars came there, and I was actually at the first ever regular season game for the Dallas Stars. I'll always be able to say that.
How about that? So talk to us about your job and your title. Just kind of describe that, unpack that for us.
My title, it's very highfalutin. I'm the Senior Vice President and Corporate Communication Manager for Frost Bank. And basically that means I handle all external communication for Frost, the whole company. Media relations, so interacting with media whenever they have questions about the company. We're a fairly big publicly traded company, and people want to know what we're doing. Executive communication, anytime we have somebody out in the community, whether it's an event we sponsor or they're at the local Rotary Club or Chamber of Commerce event, they may need a speech. They may need some remarks or an introduction or a welcome, something about Frost and what we're doing. I'll write that up for them.
So you write the speeches. Okay.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody, but not all the executives write their own speeches. Sometimes I help them out a little bit. And then if there's any hard questions, crisis communication kinds of things, those have popped up. I'll handle that. And I work with the people who do employee communications. I do public relations and community relations. So anything that you can think of where Frost is represented in the community, that's what I am responsible for. And my background in journalism helps with that quite a bit.
What was your very first role at Frost? And from day one, what do you most remember?
Okay, so interesting story. I'm still in my first role at Frost.
So you're always.
Okay. Yes, this is how, which is another way of saying I haven't had a promotion in 10 years, but I came here as the corporate communication manager. I replaced a woman named Renee Sable who retired. She was a longtime Frost employee, and before that she worked in public relations for the Dublin Group, Dublin and Associates here in San Antonio. She was the previous CEO's communication person. So she retired about the same time Dick Evans retired. Dick Evans was the CEO. There was Tom Frost was CEO, then he became chairman emeritus. Dick Evans took over as CEO, and then he retired in 2016. And at the same time he retired, Renee Sable, the communication person, retired. That's fairly standard. A CEO typically has a communication person. So I came on board as Phil Green's communication person. Phil Green is the current CEO of Frost, has been since. He's been with the company for 40 years and served in a lot of different roles, but is the CEO now. So I came in about a month before he ascended to the top role. So I helped with the transition and overlapped a little bit with Dick Evans, the previous CEO. So all that's a long way of answering your question, like what was your first impression of Frost? I had a chance to sit down with Dick Evans before he left, and he had already transferred a lot of the responsibility to Phil by then, but he explained how he approached communication at Frost and how well he interacted with Renee Sable, who was retiring also. And he told me that Phil, the new CEO, was going to need somebody like that in this role. He needed somebody who would be straight with him and honest with him, even when Phil didn't want to hear it. You have to be able to tell Phil the stuff he doesn't want to hear. And so that stuck with me for a long, long time. And even before I joined Frost, I was doing a series of job interviews, and I interviewed with Phil Green. And I asked him, I've heard the earnings calls that you do. It seems like Frost is open and transparent about things. Is that something that you intend to keep when you become CEO? It was something I was interested in. And Phil just answered, absolutely. And it wasn't kind of a brushing you off like, oh yeah, absolutely. He meant in absolute terms, we were going to be open and transparent and honest with the community and forthcoming when people had questions. Yeah. That's exactly the kind of company that I wanted to work for. And so I was very glad to hear that. And my experience here has shown that to be the case. We have had to have tough conversations with people when we had screwed something up. We were honest and forthright about it. We have a great story to tell. This is a good company with good people. We're doing good things. That puts me in a much better position than if I was working for some company that was on the defensive all the time, or having to answer tough questions all the time, or doing things wrong, or thought that they were better than everybody. That's not this kind of company. I wouldn't want to work for a company like that. As challenging and rewarding as that might be, this is a much better kind of situation. This is a company with good stories to tell and good people, and I feel like I have the best job at Frost because I get to tell its stories.
Yeah, that was an excellent interview question, by the way. So you weren't a yes man necessarily, is what you're saying. You were able to push back with the authority and tell them what they needed to really hear.
One of the best compliments I ever got was when I was working at Valero, and also was working in communication at the time of a CEO transition. So you may have talked to Bill Greehey, who was kind of the founding CEO of Valero. He retired, and a man named Bill Klesse took over as CEO. And so some people were talking with Mr. Klesse about how he should handle communication, and the same sort of thing. Like, can Bill be relied on to tell you what you need to know? And what my boss at the time told the new CEO, and I hope I can get away with saying this on camera, is that with me, you don't get the happy horse shit. You get the straight facts. And that was a kind of a rough way of saying it, but I took that as a compliment. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. People think of public relations as we're trying to put the best spin on everything. And
spin doctors, right?
No, I'm going to help you get through this, but we're going to do it in a straightforward manner. And the more you try to candy coat it, the worse it's going to be. Just here are the facts, here's the best way to handle it, here's what we're going to do, these are my recommendations, let's go solve this problem.
Yeah. Was there ever a time that Frost really went through a controversial situation that you had to be that guy?
Yeah, I used to think of, when I got here from Valero. So Valero is a refining company. It, takes crude oil and turns it into gasoline, and along the way, emits things into the atmosphere and operates under permits and very highly regulated. And so this is financial services when I came here is also highly regulated, but different kind of situation. And I used to think it was kind of funny or cute what people thought of as a crisis situation here, like, oh, somebody's mad at you and you think that's a crisis. Nothing's on fire. There aren't people going to the hospital. It's like, it's going to be okay. But we did have situations where not long after I got here, we had a cybersecurity incident where hackers were able to gain access to a server and view images of customer information. And this was around the time when a lot of companies it wasn't as widespread as it is now, and companies that had experienced it tried to kind of cover it up and got in trouble more for the cover-up than for the incident. And we said we're not going to do that. We're going to be straightforward and honest and open about what happened, and here's how we're going to solve the problem, and here's what we're going to do for customers. We issued a press release. We met with customers. We had to have some serious, hard conversations with people about this is what happened, and here's what we're doing to fix it, and here's how we're going to alleviate the impact to you. And along the way, I had conversations with Phil Green and others about, what are we going to say about this, and how straightforward are we going to be? Should we issue a press release? And to everyone's credit and to my relief, they were all in favor of it. Nobody said anything like, let's hold back. And in fact, I remember one situation where we were putting like FAQs up on the website if customers wanted to go and find out what was going on. And the first question was, is my money safe? And I drafted, along with others, this kind of long response to the question, is my money safe? And Phil Green took a look at that, and he took a pen out of his pocket and he just went, scratched out this paragraph that I had written and just wrote the word yes. And he looked at me and he said, if the answer to the question, is my money safe, is not yes, then we have no reason to be in the bank business. Yes is the answer. Like, okay, that's all I needed to know. And that to me was, like I said, it was probably 2 years after I joined the bank, less than 2 years. Yeah. And I knew everything I needed to know at that point about this is the kind of company that I want to work for.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And you spent how many years with Valero prior to coming?
A little over 10.
10 years there.
Yes.
Okay, and now 10 years here at Frost Bank.
Yeah, so as of last month, longer term than I was at Valero. So this is the longest I've ever worked for any one company, is the 10 years plus that I've worked at Frost. Yeah. And I would like to, keep working here and end my career here.
What keeps you here? Because I know you get options, and at times you may get inquiries for...
I'm in a high profile position. A lot of people, I interact with the media and other companies, and so there's, every once in a while I see the things like there's jobs open in these places or whatever. Yeah. About once a year, a recruiter will call up and kind of make a serious, like, hey, we got this thing open in whatever, Poughkeepsie, New York. What do you think about that? Our kids, my wife and I live in San Antonio. Our kids are grown. They've moved out. We don't really have any family in the area. We're not native to San Antonio. We don't have roots here. We could go someplace else. We could go work in Washington or New York, whatever. So what keeps me here is I love the job. I love the company. I love the people I work with. And the work that I do, I feel like it's important and it's necessary and it fits my personality and like whatever skills I have, it coordinates with that. And the people here seem to think it's valuable. As long as those things are true, there's no reason to go anyplace else. Yeah. And there's a greater than zero chance I'll get choked up and emotional talking about this. But so my background is in journalism, and if you're in journalism, it's kind of easy to get cynical about things, or you're kind of trained to be a skeptic. When you're a news reporter, anybody tells you something, you're like, man, really? Like, the first thing they tell you is a lie, and then you try to get the truth out of them.
True.
I'm lucky enough to work at a company where there are documents that explain the kind of company that we are. Not aspirational, like we hope to be this. It's like, this is what Frost is. And this is what it means to be a Frost employee. And people believe it. This is a place where people believe the mission statement. Every organization has a mission statement, and you usually don't know what it is. I can recite it to you. We will grow and prosper, building long-term relationships based on top quality service, high ethical standards, and safe, sound assets.
Nice.
And you probably saw it when you came in. It's up on the wall. People know it. It's in their blue book, which is this document right here. Take that with you. This is an explanation of our philosophy and our culture and what we believe and how we act. And this is kind of like the Bible. And people use these if you ever have a decision to make or you can't really decide on which way to go. People bring out the blue book, and it tells you what you need to do as a Frost employee and how to interact with the community and each other and our customers. And it's important, and it's for 150 years, that's how our company has survived.
Yeah.
You know, this is, it's an institution now. Phil Green, the CEO, talks about when he was a CPA, he used to think that you ran a business by making good business decisions. And now he realizes that's not what you do. You run an institution by making good institutional decisions, and that's different. And you're doing it for the long term. And nobody here wants to be the class of people who ended the 150 plus year institution. This bank is important to our customers and needs to go on into the future. So it's all about making sure we have the right culture, the right people, we're in the right areas, we're doing the right things for the right reasons. And that's so, it goes beyond just showing up for work or making profits even. You know, this is a thing that it's important to everybody. We have to keep it going.
Yeah, no doubt. This is good. It's one of the things that's always made Frost so progressive is their core values.
Yes.
And being able to really demonstrate them or execute them at any given time.
And it's codified. It's written down. It's not just in one person. It's not just the CEO. It's all of us. We all have a part to play in that, and that's really attractive to me, to be a part of a company like this where it's 158 years old now. So it's, you know, we have all of the things of a 158-year-old bank. We offer savings accounts, and it's a safe, sound place to put your money and all that. But we also have all of the things of a modern technology company. You can deposit your check over your phone. You know, the fact that we've grown, almost doubled in size in the time that I've been here, in 10 years, which means we've added a lot of new locations and hired a lot of new people. To bring that many new people in and still have the same culture and the same core values and everybody buys into it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like an ongoing experiment. And to be part of that and to influence it as it happens is very exciting to me, and I'm appreciative for the opportunity to do that, because a lot of places I think you would go, it's a big corporation, here's what we do, you're in your little box and just do your thing, and you know, 30 years we'll give you a present and send you on your way.
Yeah.
This isn't like that. You have some interaction with the people who are making the decisions, and you get to make some decisions yourself, and you interact with customers and in the community, help them understand what this is all about and build this institution as we go. Like we're not following anybody else's model. I don't mean to sound like it's ad hoc or we're making it up as we go, but we're building it as we're progressing. And I don't know that there's another company like Frost. We're unique in a lot of ways that we're not following somebody else's model. We're developing it ourselves.
Leadership is somewhat underrated at times, and it requires multifaceted skills and personality and patience. Can be a thankless job in at times. What one skill do you think has proven to be that you have that has kept you successful over the years?
It's something I had to learn, frankly, is just the ability to listen to people and find out what motivates them.
Listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And appreciating the differences that we all have. Whether it's, and this goes to diversity, but it's not just about diversity of race or ethnicity or religion, but also like personality types. And interests and knowledge and different skills. And in an organization of this size, everybody has a part to play. And they're not all going to look like you or sound like you or be like you. And that's not bad. That's good, because we're all like pieces of the puzzle and we all have to fit in. It's, I'm in a public relations function, people I think expect me to be extroverted and out, and I'm not.
It's not you.
Pretty introverted, pretty quiet, pretty what you see is what you get. But I recognize the value of people who have different personalities and different interests in me, because we all need that as well. So the ability to listen and to hear people and to find out where they are in their journey and how they can fit in and help out with what you want to do, because you all have that in common, but you all come from it from different directions. That's the thing that I think has helped me become a better leader.
What's one change you've witnessed here at Frost that you're most proud of?
So there's so many things that I'm proud of, but I think the thing that I go back to more and more is our response to the pandemic in 2020, and the fact that not only did we adapt really quickly to the fact that a lot of us were going to be working remotely, and we had to shut down bank branches and adapt really quickly to how do we serve customers not face to face. And we realized the importance of having motor banks and drive-throughs and sending people to the drive-through and just making decisions very quickly on the fly and getting everybody set up with the technology that they needed while this emergency was going on, and while our customers, especially small business customers, were really suffering because of the shutdowns and the way, the medical things and so forth. And so the government developed this program called PPP loans, emergency loans, especially for small business. And they administered it, but we were the ones who actually handled the applications for loans.
Yeah.
And we handled, if I remember right, about 14,000 loan applications in the first week.
Wow.
And so that's about 150% of what our usual annual loan application volume was, in 1 week. And we managed to do that by working around the clock from home, on our home, on our laptops with our home Wi-Fi and everything, with the equipment and the technology that the IT team gave us. And we were able to help our customers and keep our customers afloat. And we punched way above our weight in terms of, we're not the biggest bank in Texas, but we led the way in terms of PPP loan, not only the number of loans, but the amount of dollars. And then had to come around, those were all forgivable loans. If the borrower met certain criteria and used that money for payroll, because it's called Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, if they met those, they could get their loan forgiven. So that was a whole other application process, and we had to come back around and make sure that they had all the paperwork and all the things and submit those for them and make sure that they got their loan forgiven. And again, doing all that at an unprecedented time of, we don't really know what's going to happen, and we've never done this before as far as working remotely, and everybody just pulled together. And honestly, it was, I don't ever want to go through it again. I don't want to, that should not be the takeaway. But it was one of those situations where we all realized the magnitude of what was going on and the seriousness of it, and got it done. And the people who went through that are now bonded. It's like, I don't want to compare it to going through combat or something, but it's like you got through the really tough times together and made decisions and figured things out when nobody in the history of our company, nobody in really the country for the last 100 years had to go through something like that. To figure that out is really it brought us all together, and we're stronger now because of it. We built great relationships with our customers. They were very grateful that we were able to help them out.
Oh, yeah.
And we learned that we really can do this stuff working remotely. It really doesn't have to all be in the office all the time. So we're still not 100% back in the office. The people who are facing customers in the branches obviously are in the branches, but a lot of us back office people still have the ability to work remotely when we need to, or travel and still be dialed in. And that's been a very important learning for us. And to the leadership's credit, they were not, too draconian about you have to be back in the office by this date. They realized that we were trustworthy in doing our jobs and taking care of our customers, and as long as we're doing that, they don't really care where we're doing it from.
Yeah, that was a period in an era that only the strong survived it.
Yes.
But it built a lot of leaders who had to figure out how to get through it.
Well, a lot of the things that we compared it to were in the aftermath of September 11th. So after September 11th, of course, planes were not flying for a few days. Sure. And the way banks moved physical checks around to clear checks, they had to, if they were from out of state, they went by planes. We had to figure out methods of doing that without actually having the physical paper check. So that's when a lot of electronic checking was developed. And we just kept it because it was such a good thing. Same thing with, in the pandemic, we couldn't get people to come in and put ink signatures on documents in a bank. If you're applying for a loan or applying for a line of credit or something, we need an ink signature. Well, we got very comfortable with DocuSign and electronic signatures at that point, and we realized that that's just as good, and so we've kept that. So there's things that are positive that have come out of that make everything more efficient, but at the time it was just chaos and scramble and let's figure this out. And again, because of the people that we have here, the dedication and frankly the brilliance, I have been impressed with how smart people here and how adaptable and how they're able to figure things out. And that was a prime example of that.
Yeah, it's nice to work around smart people.
It definitely is. Another great attribute.
Yeah. So, Bill, leadership, at times you're a manager, other times you're a mentor. And if you're really an effective leader, you lead by example. And any person who puts in 10 years with one organization nowadays, that's good mileage. Is really kind of leading by example. What's one thing you may share with the younger generations about leading in a situation where you stay with the same company for 10 plus years?
Well, it's good that you mentioned leading by example because I've always tried to do that, and luckily I have had good examples of my own to draw on of other people. Frost is a company that's filled with people who've been here 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years, who are loyal to the company, and Phil Green, the CEO, is one of those. My father, who just passed away back in March of this year, was somebody like that. I mentioned I grew up in Detroit. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company. When I was growing up as a kid in the 60s and 70s, everybody's dad worked for one of the car companies. That's just what happened.
Yeah,
just
it was
worked.
Detroit. Right.
And he worked for Ford for 40 years, and he believed in the company, and he was loyal to the company. He always drove a Ford car. And his reasoning was, if I don't drive them, how can I expect somebody else to drive them? And when he retired, he spent 40 years there and retired, and by this time I was, Mr. Smarty Pants business guy. And so I said, let me look at your retirement portfolio and help you out. And I was shocked that in his 401k was like 100% Ford stock. I'm like, you gotta diversify, you've got to. He didn't want to do it because he was loyal to the company. He knew that company and knew what it stood for, and had faith that it was going to be an institution that would be safe going into the next few years. And so that's, look for an institution. I talked about that. Phil Green says that. Look for a company or any organization that's going to be around and wants to be there, for the long term, but also is doing things for the right reasons. And I think you're right. It's 10 years with one company is a lot these days because there's so many choices, and there's a lot of people who are attracted to whatever the new startup thing is, or the hot new company on Wall Street, or whatever the IPO is, and chasing those kinds of things. And I don't want to downplay that because those things are important, and we tell people that here at Frost. A lot of people come to us and they've studied finance, and they could work anywhere. And if we say, if you want to get rich quick kind of job, go work for a hedge fund. That's not this. This is not that, and this is the kind of company where you're going to work with customers for 10 or 15 or 20 years and help them succeed, and as they succeed, you'll succeed. If you want to go do the $1 million bonus and drive a Lamborghini and all that kind of stuff. There's places to do that, and we need those places too.
Yeah.
So, go find that. And we kind of self-select, and people self-select us for that reason too. The people who are here are the ones who want to help customers and help them succeed. And one of the things that people say here a lot is we hire nice people and teach them how to be bankers. We don't hire bankers and teach them how to be nice people, because you can't do that. You have to start with people who want to help other people. And
that.
That's Frost.
That's outstanding. What you often find when you make a change anyways is that there's nothing better out there, just different, right?
They're all jobs, right? Like, there's a reason they have to pay you to show up.
Right.
It's like if it was fun and games,
Still
then
gotta work.
They wouldn't have to pay you.
Still got to work with people.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you had to sum up your Frost journey in one word, what would it be and why?
I would like to cheat and use 3 words, if I could. That would be integrity, caring, and excellence. That's Frost's core values. That's how we're all supposed to and are expected to approach the job.
Integrity,
caring, and excellence. And you have to have all 3. Integrity is important, caring is important, excellence is important. The excellence part is we're going to do our jobs very well. We're going to this is a for-profit enterprise. We're going to be successful, and we're going to make profits, and we're going to keep the company going for ourselves and our customers and our shareholders. To do that, we have to be excellent at what we do. But we have to care for our customers. We can't do that. We can't be excellent and not care for people. And because we're taking care of other people's money, we have to act with integrity. We have to know that the people who are entrusting us with their money trust us, and that they know that we're going to do what we say we're going to do, and we take that seriously. And there's a line in the Blue Book that's my favorite out of all of the things that the Blue Book says, that says something like, we understand that technical competence is no substitute for personal character. And in other words, just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you get to break the rules, or we're not going to look the other way if you're good at what you do. That's the technical competence part, but you have to have personal character. Those things go together. And so that's why we have integrity and caring and excellence. So I would pick 3 words if I can get away with it.
Nice. And you can.
Good, thank you.
We're going to take one last break, and then we'll come back with some final questions.
Every child faces a moment when fear feels bigger than courage. For Oscar the Osprey, that moment comes every single day. Oscar the Osprey, the bird who was afraid of heights. Oscar is a bird designed to soar through the mountain skies of the Teton Range. But there's one problem. He's absolutely terrified of heights. While his brother Otto and sister Oprah fly effortlessly, Oscar freezes at the edge of the nest, gripped by the very fear his nature was meant to overcome. After harrowing trials, including a run-in with a pack of wolves, Oscar discovers the most important lesson of all. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing to try anyway. Through patience, encouragement, and one brave decision at a time, Oscar learns that his wings were always strong enough. He just needed to believe. From children's author Edward Martin Polansky comes a story Kirkus Reviews calls a must-have for families, schools, and communities. With black and white illustrations by award-winning artist Jean Rousseau, Oscar's journey teaches children ages 6 to 8 that being brave means flying even when you're scared. Oscar the Osprey, the bird who was afraid of heights, because every child deserves to know they're braver than they think. Available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Powell's, and Walmart. Give your child the gift of courage.
I'm going to ask you a personal question. What's the one thing that folks who know you don't know about you but should?
So that's a hard question for me, because I mentioned earlier I'm more introverted than extroverted. So I don't necessarily want anybody to know anything about me that they don't already know. Like, if you know me, then you pretty much get what you see. I would say that the people who know me, if they kind of know me a little bit, might not know like the whole picture. Because I am fairly quiet. So I have had people tell me like, oh, I had no idea that you were so funny. And like, I wasn't trying to be funny, but I guess I was, or, I was more charming than they expected. But, look, I'm a middle-aged or older white guy, look like a blank canvas. And so people project whatever things that they want to on somebody like that. And so I think people sometimes assume that I'm a thing that I'm not. And so I don't necessarily like that part of it. I remember seeing studies that were like, we can tell by the zip code of where you live, probably how much money you make and what political party you vote for and where you went to school. And I don't like that.
So you don't fit.
I don't want to be just a cog in the wheel. Like I'm a little bit more individual than that. And you probably can't tell, but when I was in college, I actually got my ear pierced and wore an earring around because I didn't want people seeing a young white man and assuming that I can go tell that young white man a racial joke, or I can, assume that he's a straight guy and make fun of other people, or like he's of various religion or whatever. Like I just didn't want that. Didn't want people assuming that they could tell anything about me by the way I looked. So I, popped this earring in, and like if that gave people a little bit of pause, I was happy with that. Yeah. So that's probably a different way of answering the question. I guess the answer would be I'm a little more individualistic, and probably got more stuff going on than you or anybody else would assume.
So don't profile me and
please don't
take everything you see as being.
Yeah, I mean I listen to music that other people don't listen to, and I like sports that other people don't like, and I probably go a little overboard trying not to fit in with the general public. Like I would hope that I still have some surprises left in me for people who don't know me well.
Yeah, very good. Final question. We've just discovered that all leaders are readers. They typically have a go-to book on their nightstand. Bill, what book's on your nightstand?
I'm really glad you asked that, because I think reading is underrated these days, and I'm old enough, and you probably are, that to actually hold a physical book is a pleasure. Yes, so I'm always reading something. So the book I most recently finished was called We Breed Lions by a guy named Rick Westhead.
We Breed Lions.
We Breed Lions. It's about the toxic culture that has sprung up around professional hockey. I mentioned I'm a hockey fan growing up in Michigan. In Canada especially, the way that professional hockey is set up from a fairly early age to the highest professional levels is the kind of culture that can breed toxicity and misogyny and toxic masculinity. And this book explores all that, goes into a court case around 5 young hockey players who were accused of sexual assault. There's a corresponding movie about it called Code of Misconduct that people can check that. It's a documentary. Really good. It's very interesting, and it's probably not the kind of leadership book that you were thinking of, but it's about cultures. It's about organizational cultures, and that's something that's fascinating to me because I work in a company that has a culture that's completely different than that. And how would you go about changing a culture of another institution that's hundreds of years old and that's such a huge part of Canada's national identity, hockey, ice hockey, men's ice hockey? How would you change that culture? What has to be done in order to get them off the path that they're on now and get them onto a better path? The book that I read before that was a book called Out Came the Sun by Mariel Hemingway. It was her memoir. I'm kind of an amateur Ernest Hemingway scholar. Really enjoy his work, so interested in his biographies and then by association the biographies of his family. There's a line of mental illness that runs in his family. His father committed suicide, he committed suicide, one of his granddaughters died of an overdose. So this was kind of Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter. She goes goes into that, the family history. You know, what part of this, what is it about the family that is so celebrated but so tragic? So very interesting to me as a scholar. And then the book I'm reading now, which I'm struggling to get through, is called Ionian Vision. It's, I like to study history, but again, because I don't want to be lumped in with everybody else, I study obscure history. And this is an account of the conflict between Greece and Turkey after the end of the First World War. So Turkey was part of the Ottoman Empire. They fought on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary, lost the war, the Ottoman Empire dissolved. Greece was on the side of the Allies, fought with France and Britain and the United States. And so after the war, the great powers carved up the remnants of these empires and assigned to Turkey, or assigned to Greece, part of the Turkish mainland. And Greece just went in and took it over. And the Turks had a revolution, new leadership, built an army, and kicked the Greeks out. So it's just a fascinating, understudied part of history that I want to know more about, because I don't know anything about that. Didn't learn about that in school, and want to understand that, because there's lessons in that for what's going on today.
Yeah. Bill, Dave with Frostbank, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll see you all next time.